Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're headed to the supermarket. Well, not really. We're going way beyond the produce aisle, all the way back to the farm.
Sounds intriguing.
We're diving into a research paper straight from the Polish Journal of Agronomy, and let me tell you, it's a wild ride through the world of potatoes.
Potatoes. You had me at wild ride.
Right. Now, this paper, it's all about the trials and tribulations of potatoes, all the bumps and bruises they get from the field to, well, our forks.
The secret life of spuds. I have to admit, this isn't something I usually think about, but I'm already hooked. What kind of trouble can a potato even get into?
Oh, you have no idea. We're talking pests, diseases, even weird mutations. Like, frankly, some of the stuff that can go wrong with a potato, it's enough to put you off French fries for life.
No way! Okay, now you have to tell me more.
Oh, we will. But first, a rather grim statistic from the paper. It turns out that something like 30% on average of the potato harvest is lost because of these potato problems.
30%. So for every 3 potatoes, one just doesn't make it? That's a lot of potatoes.
A whole potato mountain. Imagine the impact that has not just on our plates, but for the farmers who depend on these crops.
It's a huge loss, both in terms of food and the resources that go into growing it. It makes you think about the challenges of food security, especially with climate change and a growing population.
It really does. And speaking of challenges, this paper dives deep into the nitty-gritty of what's actually attacking these potatoes. We're talking a whole lineup of threats. I mean, we're talking bacterial infections, fungal diseases, even viruses.
Wow, it's a microscopic war zone out there. It's amazing we have any potatoes left to eat at all.
Right. And each of these attackers has its own, like, signature move, you know. Some of them are downright bizarre. What really caught my eye were these names like blackleg or silver scurf.
Okay, silver scurf sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
I know, right? And wait till you hear about hollow heart and black heart. Those sound like, well, bad news for any potato.
They do sound a little ominous.
So hollow heart and black heart, are those as scary as they sound? What's the deal with those?
Well, they're not exactly pleasant for the potato. See, both of these, they mess with the inside of the potato, basically making it, well, inedible.
Makes sense. So how does the potato get a hollow heart then?
So imagine this. The potato, it starts growing, right? But it grows a little too enthusiastically, a little too fast. The outer part, the flesh, it races ahead, but the inside, the core, it can't quite keep up. And you end up with, well, a void.
Ah, so like a potato growing pain, kind of. Yeah. And black heart? That sounds even worse.
And it sounds dramatic, but it's more like a bruise. But on the inside, basically the potato, it doesn't get enough oxygen, could be during storage, transport, and the heart kind of darkens.
So like a potato black eye. Ouch. It's incredible how much can go wrong inside what looks like a perfectly normal potato.
Right. And that brings us to another issue that's, well, a little more visible, greening.
Oh, right, greening.
Yeah.
We've all seen those potatoes that start to turn green, especially if they've been hanging out in the sun a little too long. What's going on there?
Well, remember we were talking about black heart being like a bruise? Greening, it's kind of like a potato sunburn.
A sunburn, really?
Yeah, when a potato's exposed to light, it starts producing chlorophyll. That's the stuff that makes plants green, right?
Right, makes sense. But isn't chlorophyll supposed to be good for you?
Well, here's the catch. When a potato produces chlorophyll, it also starts making this other compound, solanine. And solanine, well, it's not exactly something you want to be adding to your diet.
So that's the potato's way of saying, don't eat me, I'm toxic.
Pretty much. It's a defense mechanism, a way to deter those hungry animals and insects. And while a little green might not hurt, it's always best to be on the safe side and cut those parts out.
Good advice. So we've talked about those microscopic attackers, the bacteria, the fungi, the viruses. We've covered sunburn and bruises, the hazards of light and oxygen. But there's one more threat we haven't mentioned, and it's a big one.
Oh, yeah, I think I know where you're going with this, us.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Us. As much as we love our potatoes, we could be their biggest enemy. Even if a potato manages to dodge all those diseases and environmental hazards, there's still the whole journey from field to fork to worry about.
Right. The harvest, the transport, the storage, all those bumps along the way.
And that's where those bumps and bruises, those we talked about at the beginning, that's where they really come into play. You know, we might think of potatoes as tough, but they're actually pretty delicate on the inside.
Right, yeah. It's easy to forget that part. We just see them all stacked up at the store, all nice and neat. Exactly. We don't see what those potatoes have been through, from being dug up to, well, ending up in our shopping carts.
Makes you wonder if we should be a little more, I don't know, respectful of our potatoes.
A little potato reverence.
Right. But speaking of those bumps and bruises, this paper mentioned something called darkening after injury. What is that exactly?
Well, think about what happens when you cut open an apple, how it starts to turn brown.
Yeah, it oxidizes, right?
Right. And darkening after injury in potatoes, it's basically the same idea. When that potato flesh gets damaged, you get these enzymes that react with oxygen and boom, discoloration.
Ah, so it's like a bruise, but on the inside. Does that mean all potatoes have some degree of this darkening?
Most likely, yeah. In most cases, it's just a cosmetic thing. Doesn't really affect the taste, and it's not like it's harmful or anything.
So why even worry about it then?
Well, for farmers, it can be a big deal. You know how it is at the supermarket. Everyone wants those picture-perfect potatoes.
Oh, totally. I'll admit I'm guilty of picking out the best-looking ones myself.
It's human nature, right? But all those imperfect potatoes, they often end up going to waste. And that's a shame because there's really nothing wrong with them.
It really makes you think twice about all the food we waste without even realizing it.
It really does. It's a good reminder that, looks aren't everything.
Well said. So we've covered a lot of ground here, or should I say underground, in this potato deep dive. What are some key takeaways you hope listeners will dig into after listening to this?
Well, I think the big one is that potatoes, they're more complex than we give them credit for. They have this whole hidden life cycle full of challenges and, well, frankly, dangers.
Right. I mean, who knew a potato could go through so much drama just to get to our plates?
Right. And understanding these challenges even a little bit, it helps us appreciate what goes into the food we eat and maybe even make different choices at the grocery store.
Absolutely. Maybe that slightly wonky potato isn't so bad after all.
Exactly. It might even have a more interesting story to tell.
I love that. So next time you're enjoying a plate of French fries, remember, those potatoes, they've been through a lot to get to you.
Give your potatoes some love.
Exactly. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Until next time.